Hello, and welcome to Troy Story, a podcast for the Collar City where we explore the history and people of Troy, New York, one conversation at a time. As always, I'm your host, John Salka. This month, we're taking a closer look at 150 years of history of the Troy Savings Bank Music Hall. The iconic music venue and performance space in downtown Troy is the subject of a new WMHT documentary titled The Music Hall, Troy, New York's Monument to Sound, which premieres in May 2026. Here's a clip from the trailer.
This bank built this building, and then they insisted on making most of it a concert hall. That's an incredible idea.
I love the thought that Rachmaninoff was here. Horowitz, Toscanini, all that, but especially Rachmaninoff somehow, because I love his music.
The Troy Music Hall is one of the most acoustically perfect music halls in the world.
I was very fortunate to land two great guests for this episode, John Elbaum, Executive Director of the Troy Savings Bank Music Hall, and Senior Producer Matt Rogowitz from WMHT, to discuss what went into pulling this documentary together ahead of a special premiere event being held at the Music Hall on May 19th. If you haven't already, please don't forget to hit the follow button on your podcast platform of choice to get notified about new episodes of Troy Story, a podcast for the Collar City. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star rating and review. This is super helpful for getting others to find our show. Our full episode archive is also available at troystorypod.com, where you can also subscribe for email updates and explore the official Troy Story blog. All right, let's dive into our conversation with Matt and John to talk all things Troy Savings Bank Music Hall. Matt, John, welcome. Thank you so much. This is a personal privilege for me to have both of you on Troy Story, a podcast for the Collar City.
Thank you.
So just really quickly for listeners, can you just introduce yourselves and just explain your role with the Music Hall and WMHT respectively?
Sure. Well, I'm John Elbaum. I'm the Executive Director of the Music Hall. I've been here for a little over 15 years now, and it's been an exciting time for the Music Hall. Lots of changes and more to come, but, we continue to celebrate this beautiful 150-year-old institution in the heart of Troy that means so much to so many people, which is a very gratifying position to be in. So it's a great situation for us.
And I'm Matt Rogowitz. I'm a senior producer and host at WMHT, and I've been here since 2013. Primarily focused on the arts. It sort of just happened that way. I produced and edited a local art show called Aha House for Arts. And in 2014, I edited the SPAC 50th documentary. And so here we are today celebrating Troy Savings Bank Music Hall's 150th anniversary. So it's a lot of fun.
So just to start, where did the idea for this documentary about the Troy Savings Bank Music Hall come from?
Well, we're always at WMHT looking for what's happening in the area, what are the big anniversaries that are taking place. As I said, we did SPAC at 50. So, it's the 150th anniversary of Troy Savings Bank Music Hall. It sounds like the perfect opportunity to look at this historic venue. So it sort of grew from there. And of course, the Troy Savings Bank was on board.
John, how did that happen? Sounds like WMHT approached you. What was that like when you got the email or the phone call about it?
Well, we were very excited because for the last year we've been celebrating this 150th anniversary. So this seemed like a perfect fit to kind of cap that all off and really kind of put a bow around it and just help tell the story. It's been a remarkable history. So many fabulous performances, such a great tie to the community, and an iconic institution, and it's right in Troy in our own backyard. So it's pretty special.
The documentary's title is The Music Hall, Troy, New York's Monument to Sound. John, for those who are not familiar with the Music Hall, which would really be surprising, for those who aren't familiar with it, can you just give our listeners just a quick explainer on what makes the venue such a unique place, both in its history and its acoustic qualities?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One, it's one of the oldest music halls in the country that's still in operation. So that's pretty special. Um, the acoustics are renowned. They came about sort of by accident, I guess. The basic geometry of the building supports the acoustic environment in that the ratio of the ceiling height to the width and depth of the theater house allows this reverberation to happen, which really is quite special. But that didn't actually exist until the organ was put in over the stage. So that changed the whole situation. So that at that point, it really became a unique acoustic environment. And we were home to Dorian recordings for many years, and many famous recordings have come through here. The Albany Symphony's recorded two Grammy Award-winning recordings that they did here. And the musicians who play here really respect that and appreciate it. And I think they can hear themselves in a way that they can't hear themselves in other venues, and that they kind of play around with it sometimes. They'll go off mic if it's an amplified show and just kind of play to the audience. And it's also very intimate, even though we're, close to 1,200 seats. There's a real connection between the audience and the artist. And I think that creates a real cool vibe, for everyone. And it makes the experience very special.
Matt, how did you approach this documentary? More specifically, how did your team cram 150 years of music hall history into just 30 minutes? How does that work?
Yes, that is the challenge. It's a lot to cover, but I think you just have to approach it. I want to cover as much as I can. So of course, we talk about the history of it, the origin story. We talk about some of the legendary performers that have performed in that hall. We talk about the organ, and when that was installed, it wasn't original to the building. We talk about the acoustics, and of course, we do talk about the music hub and the AC that have been added into the hall recently. And it was funny when I started this project. I couldn't wait to get ready to film and start taping. And that was when I really found out, oh, there's construction going on in the hall, and it's going to be closed for the next, however many months. And so here I am. I have to do this documentary, and the hall is closed. So that was a little fun challenge to work around. But we managed to really get a really wonderful drone operator from California to come to the hall, and we got wonderful, outside shots of the drone. We got beautiful interior shots with the drone and with a gimbal. So it's a beautiful looking program that we really covered the entire history of the hall. And, I think it's a really, really exciting thing that people are going to love to see.
No spoilers, because it sounds like you've given us a little bit of a teaser, and I have not seen the documentary myself. Like many other people, I've only seen the trailer, and I was immediately excited about it as a fan of the music hall and someone who's lived and worked in Troy for a long time. But what can viewers expect to see in the documentary? Are there specific things that we should be looking for while we're watching it?
Well, look out for some special guests. Of course, we're going to be talking with Albany Symphony and David Allen Miller. He's going to talk about his history there and, why he puts that at the top of the list of American concert venues. We're going to talk to special guest Stephen Isserlis, who's a world-renowned cellist who played as part of the Troy Chromatics concert series. And you are going to actually be able to hear the organ, which is, it's in a state of partial functionality, but it still is an amazing piece of history at the hall, and something that, hopefully down the road will be able to be restored to its full capacity.
So the organ is one of my favorite factoids, things to share about the hall. It was not original to the space. So in 1875, the building opened, did not have an organ.
Very little has changed. There was some roof work done, and there's been some ceiling work done. I think the biggest change that's visible to the public is a new cove that was put over the stage when we purchased the pipe organ in 1890.
The Troy Savings Bank purchased the organ from a gentleman in Manhattan who owned it. It was actually installed in his apartment townhouse. I don't know about you, but I cannot fit an organ in my townhouse, but he could. So they deconstructed it when they purchased it from him and reinstalled it here in the music hall.
It is. It's very cool when you're sitting in the seats and you kind of look up above the stage, that curved, when you're looking at the stage, for those who haven't been in the music hall, there's that initial sort of curved wall space that the performance space is on. Then above it, the sort of looms above you. They're really impressive. They're very serious looking organ pipes. So pretty cool when you go in to physically see I don't want to use the word imposing, but it is. It's very, the presence is very powerful.
Yeah, it kind of dominates the room a little bit.
From a research standpoint, this must have been a Herculean task, back to the point of crushing down 150 years of history into 30 minutes, but probably just from the start to be able to pull all of that information together. How did the production team approach this? I saw Kathy Sheehan, the City of Troy and Rensselaer County historian, was in the trailer, so I imagine the team probably leaned pretty heavily on her and other historians in this work.
Yes, exactly. Kathy Sheehan, the Hart-Cluett Museum, they were a big help. Of course, Kathy's featured throughout the program and very heavily at the beginning to talk about the history of the hall, the Troy Savings Bank, and how, the Troy Savings Bank gave this hall as a gift basically to the city of Troy when they built their new headquarters. It's a really interesting history. Kathy was a big help, and also Carl Mosner, who was running Troy Chromatics concert series. He's in the documentary and gives a little taste of his favorite concert that took place as part of that series. So there are a lot of people that know the history. It is such an extensive history, but because it's a short doc, there's only about 5 minutes spent on the history. So it goes pretty quickly. So luckily, I didn't have to go too in depth, but I mean, you can just, and John does in the doc, just lists off a bunch of names of some of the people that have performed in the hall. I mean, Rachmaninoff himself, George Zell, I could go on and on, Queen Latifah. I mean, it's astounding.
And the Hart-Cluett Museum, for those who haven't had a chance to go visit, Kathy Sheehan is the executive director, I think outgoing executive director, I believe, at this point. I think she's retiring. Strongly encourage everybody to go check out the Hart-Cluett Museum. I know that they have a lot of great materials on City of Troy history and the Savings Bank Music Hall history. And I just want to point out, Kathy Sheehan was a great previous guest on the podcast. We talked about the City of Troy's connection to "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" poem, so that was very cool. So for those listening, I'll drop a link in the show notes. Matt just mentioned this, John, some of the biggest names in music over the last 150 years who've performed at music and entertainment during the last century and a half. Do you have any highlights from your time as executive director that stand out, or just in general across that century and a half worth of history that are noteworthy for listeners who might be hearing us right now?
I mean, almost too many to mention, but some of my favorites were like Lily Tomlin, who's just a sweetheart and was really fun to spend some time with. Wynton Marsalis has played here many times. Lyle Lovett really loves the room, and he's been a great friend of the hall. Chris Thiele, I mean, what a versatile, every genre you can imagine. I mean, he's just fabulous. And he did a concert a couple of years ago now, I guess, with the Knights, where he composed a piece for them. It was about a 40-minute piece. And it was one of the most remarkable things I think I've ever seen. It was really cool. But yeah, so, and then, lately we've been doing a lot of comedy and had a real good success with that. And that seems to, people have an appetite for that now. Kind of lighter fare, I guess you might say. And certainly some of the tribute acts are kind of popular these days. So we've broadened our programming to kind of reflect the changing times. We have a little bit of a challenge because some of the technology that is common in concerts now is more difficult to implement in our space. So that, in a way, it's a limiting factor, but it creates a unique kind of niche for us. And the experience is different from going to a Proctor's or the Palace. I mean, it's just the production is different and the artists are different. So I think that puts us in a kind of a special place, which is good.
Matt, do you have any special memories of the music hall yourself, like acts or performances or entertainers that you've seen over the years?
You know, my parents always took me every summer to SPAC. So I grew up seeing the Philadelphia Orchestra there. And, you know, when I found out that there's this Troy Savings Bank Music Hall and that, you know, the Albany Symphony plays there and Albany Pro Musica, I went to see some of these local groups and I was just blown away by the sound. I mean, you know, I was used to hearing an orchestra in an open air venue, Tanglewood or SPAC, and then you come here and it's just astonishing. It like if that's really, I think from my goal for this doc is really just to blast that out into the world that like this place is incredible. It's not only one of the best acoustical venues in America, but in the world. And if you haven't been there, if you haven't stepped inside, you're missing out. You really got to take a chance and see this place.
I'll echo that. I mean, when we have an orchestra like the Albany Symphony playing, I mean, the sound it's like louder than a rock show. It's just, it envelops your entire being. It's just it's a wonderful thing.
One of my favorite parts of the doc, another little teaser is, you know, I spoke with Ning Zhang, I think is his name. So I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but he is an acoustician who teaches at RPI. And about every year, he brings his class to the theater to do some acoustical experiments in the hall. And so we filmed that class. They were taking measurements. I think it was a pink log sweep that they blasted out into the venue. And then they had, it looks like a head. They recorded the sound with those microphones and did measurements in the hall. And Ning explains, you know, that the science of acoustics and how that really started in 1900. Boston Symphony Hall was the first hall that was built with modern acoustical sciences. And so go back to 1875, the Troy Savings Bank Music Hall was not like that, but it is still such an astounding sounding hall. And it even predates Carnegie Hall, which was 1891. So, I mean, it's really a treasure of American music halls. And I just think it really needs to be much more well known. It's known in certain circles, as John knows, but it's got to be really world renowned.
And every time that I've either seen an interview with an artist who's plugging the concert before it's set to happen, or afterwards, it inevitably comes up. The artist always talks about, wow, the sound of the music hall. I love playing here because it just sounds amazing. I've even seen artists say it from the stage while they're performing that night. They, as I think John mentioned earlier, you know, the sound on the stage itself, it's like a musician's venue. You know, it's not a rock club. It's not, you know, however many watts you're blasting out into the audience. It is the room itself. You hear yourself on stage in a way that's very different than a lot of other performance spaces. Now, that being said, I think with the hundreds of thousands of people that have walked through the doors of the music hall over the last 150 years, each visit is part of the larger story of Troy and sort of our individual memories and connections to the city and to the music hall. And I have so many cherished memories of concerts at the music hall, shows, entertainment, and two immediately come to mind. I was going through these last night in my head, and the first one was comedian David Cross was there. This was, I think, pre-COVID. And he opened his set expressing horror at Hoosick Street. I guess he was staying at the hotel on Hoosick Street, and he was so horrified by Hoosick Street. And he opened his set saying, "Oh my God, Hoosick Street! Like, who is the mayor of this town?" Like, he was very and in the audience was that my then boss Patrick Madden. He was sitting in the audience and very astutely did not identify himself. But I thought that was very funny. That stood out to me. And then on a more sincere note, a serious note, I proposed to my now wife at the music hall after seeing a Bela Fleck and Abigail Washburn show. Actually, and John helped me with that proposal. I let him know in advance. So that was really great and really wonderful. So I have these connections to the music hall, just like I'm sure hundreds of thousands of other people do. And so, John, I guess my question is, do you often hear stories like that from ticket holders about the music hall, about their experience there? And how important do you think that is to like contributing to the hall's more contemporary history, or and its broader, longer 150-year history?
I think there are a lot of people with very deep personal connections to the hall, for many reasons. One, just the physical presence of it in the community, and then very special experiences. We actually had another proposal happen last year in the hall. Those kinds of things. And then, many people who had their first exposure to a live concert, when they were kids coming to the hall or something like that. And maybe they moved out of the area and then came back and got to experience it once again. And those kinds of things are really meaningful, for our history. So I think that's kind of one of the more rewarding things for me, is that even aside from the musical performances, the deep personal affection that so many people have for the building and the institution and the history. And, Troy has so much history, and that's a really valuable piece of what makes Troy so special. And the music hall is an integral part of that. So it's very rewarding.
Matt, from a creative standpoint, producing this documentary, what does it mean for you? Is there a particular importance that comes with telling the story of the music hall? I know there's a team of people involved, but sort of being the captain of the ship, guiding the process, deciding what goes in and what goes out. I imagine there's a reverence that comes with each project as a creative, that you want to make sure you're telling the story honestly for the viewers.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, 150 years. I mean, this is certainly, I think, one of the most important and special buildings and venues that I've featured in one of my productions. And it's just, it's difficult to you can't put everything in a half an hour, basically. And so, I did my best to really highlight everything that I thought was, essential. And again, my goal is just to blast this word out to the world that this venue here is here, and it's an amazing venue.
John, many of us have been watching the progress of renovations at the music hall. Can you kind of give listeners a quick update on what the progress is?
Sure. Well, this has been a really monumental project, really, in the history of the hall. And we started on it actually pre-COVID, and then took a little break, but we're coming to the conclusion. It does a couple things. One, the first floor of the building, which was the Troy Savings Bank, has been vacant for over 10 years now. So we've renovated that space and turned it into a programmable space where we can do small performances and events, give a home to our educational programs, and provide a resource for the community of musicians for rehearsals and that kind of thing. So it's a very flexible space, and it's going to be very cool. And the other thing it will do, and has done, seems to be working at the moment, is provide air conditioning to the building, which is brand new. So that has been a monumental engineering task because of the sensitivity of the acoustics. So we've spent a great deal of time and money ensuring that the acoustics are preserved and that the movement of the air does not disturb the performances, which is a big concern. And it does seem to be working quite well. And so we're now able to do year-round programming, which is something that is fabulous and will really extend, our cultural and economic impact in terms of the visitation to the city and for all the restaurants and small businesses around here. I think it's kind of a game changer, and we anticipate our attendance increasing by 20 to 30% over the course of a year. So it's a pretty big impact. And then having these resources on the first floor and having kind of an integrated performing arts center where we can do complementary activities and outreach with these world-class artists who come through is just a tremendous opportunity that we've never really had a chance to exploit before. So it's a game changer for us, and it coincides with this 150th anniversary and this documentary, and so it's just a beautiful combination of events, and so we're so excited about that.
Matt, will viewers get a chance to see some of those renovations as part of the documentary? Is there a little bit of that in there?
There is a little bit of that in there. Like I said, the production took place during construction. So there's a little construction in there, and, we'll get a peek of the final result.
I would be remiss if I did not mention HBO's filming of The Gilded Age at the Music Hall. The production prominently features the city of Troy and the Music Hall during its last 3 seasons. John, how was that experience from the Music Hall's perspective?
Well, it was quite different. It was a little bit scary because these kinds of productions are extremely complex and involve lots of big equipment, and they do things that are a little bit intrusive and invasive. But the team was terrific to work with, and they're very respectful of the building and understood the care that needed to be taken, not only here, but in other locations that they filmed, in town. And they were great to work with. There's so much that happens at the last minute, the schedules change and everything changes. And so it's a little bit hard to keep up with, but we were very pleased to work with them. I'm not sure if if we'll be working with them, to what extent we'll be working with them for this season, but we'll see.
And I do remember the massive air conditioner units that they had outside, because at the time there was no air conditioning in the music hall. Right. But they had to sort of strategically hide it. I remember they had those vents running up the side of the building and running inside just to be able to pump AC into the room where those hundreds of actors were in there posing like they were listening to a concert. I mean, how cool is that though to have the music hall immortalized in a television show of such stature? It's a very popular show, and a lot of people saw it. It's obviously not marketed as the music hall, but it is the music hall in that show. I mean, that must be kind of special from a perspective of the music hall.
Oh yeah, I mean, we got a lot of great publicity out of it, and of course, we were also featured in a feature film years ago. And the name is not at the top of my head right now, but I don't know. Matt, do you remember what?
I'm not sure.
It had Christopher Reeve in it.
Oh man, darn it! I'm a movie nut too.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's precedent for it, but it was great. It was gave us a lot of, I think, even though the movies or the Gilded Age was set in New York City, it gave us, some recognition outside of Troy, which was important.
So we do have one question we like to ask every guest as we sort of wrap up the end of the show, and that is, how do you enjoy Troy?
I know. I go to the Troy Savings Bank Music Hall.
I just love walking around downtown. I really enjoy that, walking down 2nd Street and walking along the river. And I just love running into so many people that I know and know sort of what we do. And it's such a sense of community that is really special. I've lived in many places around the country, actually, and it's unusual and very gratifying to have that kind of atmosphere.
Where can folks find the documentary? Just give us the highlights here of where people can find it.
On Tuesday, May 19th, at the Troy Savings Bank Music Hall, we are having a premiere screening event. We're going to screen the film, and then following the film, there's going to be a panel discussion with some featured guests, including John Elbaum. And you can get tickets at troymusichall.org. And then the following night, on Wednesday, May 20th at 7:30 p.m., the film will be broadcast on WMHT. So tune in.
And will people also be able to stream that on the Passport app as well?
Yes, it will be available online after the screening, after the premiere.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. I love public television. I love the Music Hall. I just want to thank both of you so much for jumping on the call this morning and talking a little bit about this exciting documentary. A link to the trailer for The Music Hall, Troy, New York's Monument to Sound is linked in the show notes. John, Matt, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Troy Story, a podcast for the Collar City, is hosted, written, edited, and produced by me, John Salka. Our theme music is by Stephen J. Goldman at Four Legs Records. Like what you heard? Please give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to Troy Story, a podcast for the Collar City. This is incredibly helpful for getting others to find our show. Want to know more? Visit TroyStoryPod.com to see upcoming episodes, guests, and bonus content. Thanks for listening. The views or opinions expressed by guests are their own and not of the host or Troy Story, a podcast for the Collar City. The views and opinions expressed by the host are their own and do not represent the views of their employer or any other entity.